Welcome to the Board Ghost Kingdom Primer. Kingdom's a game designed by Ben Robbins. So in Kingdom, you start by generating your kingdom. You give it a name, you give it a description, you do this as a group, and then you generate 3 threat to the kingdom, things that exert outside pressures. Each person describes 2 locations in the kingdom. For each player, you'll have 2 locations described. So in a 3-player game, you'll have 6. In a 4-player game, 8, etc. Then you generate your characters. You start with your name. You attach some locations. You give it your wish or fears. You give it an association with the character to your left and right. And you also, at this point, choose your role in the kingdom. And what you want is to have varied roles. You want other people to have these roles too, so you want to have a good balance. The first role is the power. They're the ones who hold sway in the kingdom and the ones who will make decisions at certain points of the game, and they're the ones who kind of make the call. You have the touchstone, who is the will of the people, and they speak for the people. They kind of have the tone of the people in the kingdom in what they say and how their character feels. And you also have the perspective. They see how the kingdom is put together. They're the ones who can foresee what consequences may come from certain decisions made by the kingdom. So that's your setup. You generate your characters with those traits, and you also give them a couple locations that they can be found at, and you also give them a problem or a flaw. In updates to the game, they've taken out the wishes or fears and the flaws of the characters and had you attach those to the relationships you have with the other characters at the table. So those are options that you can play with. You then start your game. You define a conflict in the kingdom. The first player names what that conflict is, something that the kingdom is going to have to decide, something they will actively have to make a choice on. You put a number of boxes equal to their players plus 1. So if you have 3 players, you'll put 4 boxes down. Then over the course of the game, you're going to cross those off. You also create a crisis card that has also the number of players plus 1 boxes on it, and it simply says crisis. That's the dangers to the kingdom building up. You can also, in a long-form game, use the time passes card, which has the number of boxes equal to the number of players. You then start generating scenes. You say where your character is, what is happening, and who is there interacting with your character. And you play out your scene from there. Use it with the other people at the table. And at the end of the scene, usually you want to connect it to the conflict or the problems that your character has at their heart. And at the end of the scene, your player will check one of the boxes, either time passes or a box under crisis or a box under the conflict. And you keep going around, and once one of the cards is full, you fulfill the conflict, where the power makes a choice of whether they're going to do the yes or no on the conflict, and then the perspective says what actually happens, and the touchstone says how the people react to it. And that's another important thing. At the end of each scene, everyone has the chance to react to that scene and say from their character's power's perspective how they react. How do the people react to it? How does the perspective perceive this? How does the person in power perceive this? And they can in turn take those as opportunities to make determinations on the conflict at large, or kind of tweak what the outcomes could be in a yes or no based on the conflict. So you keep going around, and eventually you'll fill up the crisis card, and you can decide whether this means the end of your kingdom or not. So the crisis card can ebb and flow, where you can take crisis away and add crisis. But when it's full, you usually decide, okay, is this the end of our kingdom? What's going to happen? And you then sort of take turns telling out the end of your kingdom when you've decided that it's over. Another thing that you can play with that we don't really play with in the first game we play of Kingdom, is that you can challenge roles. So if someone who is the power is making a decision that you don't agree with, you could challenge them to either take their role and make that decision in their stead, or to block their role and the access to it. You can also change your own role, which can be detrimental to your character to do this. They're going to pay a price to make the change, but you could change from the touchstone to the power, or from the power to the perspective, etc. You can change your role on your scene, but you are going to pay a price when you do that. And that's Kingdom. Very simple, very similar to Downfall in the way you start by building a kingdom, then your characters, and your characters have specific roles in the kingdom. But where it diverges from Downfall is that you keep the character that you're playing, and it's the roles that can be changed depending on what you want to try to do within the kingdom. If you want to maintain your role, that's perfectly fine, and it's fine for there to be multiple roles. It just changes the dynamics of how things play out. So that's Kingdom by Ben Robbins. I would recommend listening to some of our stories, and I recommend go checking it out and purchasing it for yourself. Kingdom's available from Lame Mage Games, Lame Mage Productions.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop. Been waiting for a minute there, or has it been forever? 'Cause dying don't agree with me, no. Dying don't agree with me.